to catch up with the amount of things that Ganza is doing at the moment would take more time than we have. So we wanted to give you a snapshot of the breadth of work. We started with Mike. We moved from Mike to Mike starting in Ireland through to Ganza affecting and changing Ireland. I'm going to end this series and then hand over to the Pratchett Prize by introducing to the stage Professor Nicholas Johnson of the Department of Drama.
Dominic, are you leaving the stage?
No, I can stay if you like.
I thought we were having
I just feel better dressed.
I feel
yes.
wonderful.
I feel like I didn't dress properly. Sorry.
I have one of the artist mics. It's good.
Yes,
It feels
excellent.
good in the hand.
So, we are now at the end of 10 years of GBHI, 5 years of Creative Brain Week. You have a unique position in GBHI. Would you like, just for the benefit of people, explain what it is, how it works?
Sure. So, like a few of us, I'm one of those who've punched their loyalty card every year with Creative Brain Week. And I remember the very first task you gave us, myself,
Slides.
Brian, I think Ian, and maybe Eve Patton from the Long Room Hub. We were thrown up some images, and we had to instantly, on the spot, improvise a reaction to these. So
I'm now nervous.
I feel like this level of elevation is how I still think of Creative Brain Week every year, that it's an improvisational experience, along with being incredibly, impeccably planned. There's so much freedom within it, in the structures that you've built, and that's a huge part of the value to me, I think, and to the community. So my role in 2022, when we started, was just in drama. I was an associate professor in the drama department, and it was through the collaborations around TCIN and neuroscience, some of my own research interest, which at that time was in the neuroscience of acting, that I was invited by Brian Lawler then and Owen Cotter and some others within the GBHI community to enter as a part-time faculty member, to join the GBHI faculty as their first appointment from the Faculty of Arts in that really in the area of arts, not the faculty, but the specific area. And I began to form very close relationships with members of staff, to begin to enter into mentorship relationships, and really to try to elevate the degree of the platform for creative arts and creative artists within GBHI. And this was a distinguishing feature of what we were able to do. And it really unveiled so many opportunities that are still in their emergent form now, today, as we've begun to really understand the institutional logic of how we enact transdisciplinary thinking within a university, and how we interact with the ideas of grant structures and outputs and research ethics and supervision, and these very arcane kind of university processes that you have to get through, having people who speak across multiple languages and who are translating those ideas, into life. That has a kind of functional component. What I would say is that, to me, what it has meant personally is that my journey really started in theater as a child actor, and I went through the life of being an actor before I was trained, thinking of myself then as a director, and then as a facilitator, and a teacher, and a mime, and a whole range of strange jobs. And it was in finding the interactions within GBHI that I felt almost a return to self, that in that environment I was no longer being viewed by the world as a professor, but more almost as a dramaturg of these interactions, of someone who could sit at the side of the table, see it from the outside, and freely engage and improvise. And that spirit of welcome, I think, was really pioneered in these rooms, in these.
And that brings us very nicely to Wednesday. Thursday? Thursday.
Yeah.
My brain already is lost week. So last year we started we moved, as Ganza said, into June briefly, to reflect on what had happened in 3 years. And one of the things that had happened in 3 years is people had come back to the same conversations. They'd come back to conversations about, there is so much talk, I can't cope with talk. They'd come back to, I express myself through contemporary dance. And the neuroscientists would sit there going, how? And so we pulled those out as threads, and they've influenced the shape of this year's programme. And so this year's programme is all about thinking better together, but it has a subsection which is about moving from sense to system. And so explain a little bit what will happen on Thursday.
So on Thursday, the research center where I'm now head of drama department is the Samuel Beckett Center here on campus, and in the Beckett Theater, across lots of rooms in the building, we'll be interacting with embodied ways of knowing and ways of learning. We'll be talking about the formation of temporary communities. What we do, I think, very well in theater communities is to form these little units that get together briefly, create new feelings in each other, create new knowledge, new stories, and new exchanges. And part of our fascination from sessions like that is the transmission of knowing, ways of knowing and ways of experiencing. So we'll be pioneering new ways of exchanging, new ways of including, drawing in voices and trying to listen very closely to each other. And some of that we do, I think, most effectively through silence. So we have workshops that explore that way of knowing. And also, really, some of the conversations, I think, will lead us into thinking about those fundamentals of how communication unfolds in these temporary communities, and then how impact radiates outward in ways that university language, metrics might not fully capture or might not understand.
So before I ask you about where next, and to join some dots for people here, we will shape that day by inviting Irasima to talk about some work that she's been doing on, in fact, a book, on the impacts of Alzheimer's and dementias in low-income countries, which sort of joined some dots with Ganza. So if you look at the figures projected for older people across the world, you will see that the majority expansion of older people are in Global South, in low-income countries, in other parts of the planet than here. And so there is an exchange of information that becomes vital. There are people in this room, I'm looking at Jean Callanan, who's working with people in East Africa on palliative care. I'm looking at people from the Atlantic Institute over there who are working in multiple programs to make knowledge that's made by people working across all sorts of boundaries and systems become practical and applicable in the places that we live. And we'll talk a little bit about that tomorrow. So to wrap this session up, where would you like to go next?
My vision for what the university can do and what we can do in GBHI, and also the theater where I have allegiances, is to make our studios more porous, to invite people in to spaces that they haven't previously been members of, and to feel welcome there, to feel like they can contribute their knowing. And then that what happens in those rooms is not closed and held in those rooms, but is shared, is communicated outward. And it's this feeling that in small temporary communities, incredible knowledge is being discovered by bodies in ways that maybe not in everyone's language is easy to capture. And so it's to try to discover new ways of communicating, new ways of applying that knowledge that arises, and new advocacy for the forms of knowledge that are being left behind in those spaces. So for me, it's porousness, drawing in breath in order to exhale a greater knowledge into the world, maybe in forms that we've known for millions of years, but that we might have forgotten in the midst of our systems thinking.
It is a pleasure sitting in your company, and it is great to be able to do this and to invite you to do this. So we have one last section that we're going to go on. Anything that you'd like to add before I swap over into the next section?
Peace be with you. See you soon.
Thank you so much.